Let's learn how to make a Streamlit app that can analyze YouTube videos given links. Here's how this app is going to look like once we're done with it. So of course we have a title for this app, we have a little explanation, and there's a specific format that the users need to submit the links in. So we note that here too. If people just want to play around with it, they do not have specific links they want to analyze, they can just check the use default example file checkbox, and then once you check that, or once you upload your own file, you see a list of thumbnails that correspond to the links that you uploaded. And if you choose one of them, what you get is first the title of this video, and then the audio of this video, so you can listen to it here.
Stop using Notion for everything.
And then we get a little bulleted summary of what's being said in this video. We point out whether there is any sensitive content that is detected in this video. And lastly, all the topics that were discussed in this video. So these three things are the things that we're going to analyze from the videos. Just to show you the other functionality, if you do not choose a default example file, you can also upload another file. And if you choose one of these videos again, you get the summary, sensitive content. For example, here, apparently the sensitive social issues are being discussed. And again, the topics discussed in this video. This project is a collaboration between Streamlit and AssemblyAI. So if you want to see the written version of this tutorial, you can go and check out the blog post we prepared for Streamlit's website through the link either in the description or somewhere in one of these corners. All right, I have my AssemblyAI sweater and my Streamlit water bottle. I am ready to code, so let's get started. So of course, I'm going to start with importing Streamlit as st. And then what I want to do is to have a little title for this project. I'll call this the YouTube Content Analyzer. And of course, that's not enough. We just need to have a little bit of explanation of what's going on in this app. So I've already prepared it beforehand. We just have a couple of markdown lines where we explain that with this app, they can audit YouTube channels and their videos. All they have to do is to pass a list of links to the videos of this channel. And then you get a little list of thumbnails. And in this thumbnails, you can select one by clicking. And then what you get is a summary of the video, the topics that are discussed in the video, and whether there are any sensitive topics discussed in the video and what they are. And a little warning for the user that the links that they pass need to be in this format and not in this format. So youtube.com and not youtube.be. That one doesn't really work with the libraries that we're using. All right, once that's done, what I need to do is to use the Streamlit file uploader to get the list of links from people. So I'll say upload a file that includes the links, and I'll just say txt here to make sure that people understand they need to upload a txt file. And this will be the file that we're going to read. And so I'll just keep running it to, so that we can see how the app is developing. So let's run this first. All right, so what I have is the title and the explanations, and now we can upload a file here or not. And but if you remember from what I showed you in the beginning of this video, we also want to give the people the option to upload a default file. So for that, I'm going to have a Streamlit checkbox. And in this checkbox, you're going to say use a default file or not. And let's call this the default bool. So then I can say here, if default bool is true, then we're going to read a file. So I'll just say open, and there's a file that I already prepared, and that one is called links.txt. I'll show you what it looks like. Here is links.txt, and it's basically if this can go away, it's basically a txt file where in every new line there is a new YouTube link. But if that is not the case, then we're going to expect a file from the user. Let's see this again. Oops. rerun. Okay, now if we use the default file, yeah, nothing happens yet because we haven't implemented anything. But if we want to upload a file, then we can select here. Let's say I want to use the White House links, then it's here, it's uploaded. All right. The next thing that we want to check for is whether the file, whether there's a file that's been uploaded. So for that, I'll say if file is not none, and that's where the actual functionality of the app is going to happen. If file is none, then we're not going to do anything. We're just going to keep showing user this screen, right? What I want to do once I have this file is to get all these links that are in a new line in the txt file to be in a Python list. And one way I found to do that is by using pandas data frames. So what I do is I read this file with read CSV file into a pandas data frame. For that, I also need to say header false, otherwise it assigns a random column name, an index column that I don't want. So call it data frame, but of course need to import pandas as PD. And then what I do is I change the column name of this data frame just so that it's easier to read. And there's, you know, maybe one time you read it assigns the column name as 0, another time you read it assigns the column name as something else. So maybe that'll break the code. So for that not to happen, I'll just give the column a name. I'll just call it links or URLs. And then I will get a URLs list, and that would be the data frame URLs column into a list. So use to list. Now I have all the links that are from the txt file that was being uploaded, or the default one into the URLs list Python list. So now what I want to do is download the audio files from YouTube for all of these videos that we have the links to. So for each video, say video URL in URL list, I'll call URLs list, sounds better to me. I'll just call it URLs list. Well, what I need to do is to download audio. And for that, I'm going to create a separate function because I think it will be neater that way. So I'll do that even before the titles and everything. So for that, I'll call this one the function save audio. And I'm going to pass it a URL. And how I'm going to do it is like this. So I'm just going to copy and paste the code here. What I need to do is import, from PyTube import YouTube, and also import OS. So I'm not explaining this line by line because this is basically the standard way of how to download audios from YouTube videos using PyTube. So this is just code that I found online. I did not write it line by line by myself, but just to go through it and explain to you how everything works is basically you pass it the URL and then you specify that you only want the audio and not the whole video. And after you download it, you can get the name of this video. And using this name, you can create a file name that you're going to save it in by adding an extension like MP3 because we're working with audio files. And once that's done, using this YT, you can basically extract a bunch of things. For example, the title of this video and file name is basically the title plus the extension that we added, and also the thumbnail of this video, the URL to the thumbnail of this video, which is super useful. There are also a bunch of other things that you can extract, but these are all the things that we need. So let me go call this from inside my for loop here. So I'm going to pass it the video URLs. And what I'm going to get in exchange is video title and file name. So it will be the save location where this audio is saved and the thumbnail. I'll call this video thumbnail just to make it kind of more complete. All right, so once I get these things though, what I want to do is to create different lists where I'm going to have a list of titles. I already have the list of URLs and the list of thumbnails and the list of save locations. So I'll create those three here, say titles, just to kind of initialize them here, locations, and thumbnails. So when I want to read them, when I want to show them, display them to the user, I can easily access them. So very simply, we're going to say titles, append video title, and then locations, append the save location here, and then thumbnails, append the video thumbnail. Just to see that everything works as we expected, maybe I can do a Streamlit write of the titles. Yeah, and then we'll see what happens once we upload a file. So I'll do a rerun. We'll maybe use a default file first. Oh, yeah, I made a little mistake when I was reading the CSV file. It's supposed to be header none and not false. All right. Let's do it again. All right, nice. So we have 6 videos apparently, and we have the titles of these: Apple Notes, Power User Tips, Stop Using Notion for Everything, etc., etc. And let me see if it works if I also upload a file myself and not use a default one. All right, it works this way too. So it looks like everything we coded so far will work, no problem, so we can go further. Next, I want to, instead of showing the names of these videos to people, I want to show the thumbnails so that they can select one and we can start the analysis on that video. So normally Streamlit does not have by default any widgets or any components like that, but Vivian, a Streamlit user, made a custom component to be able to display photos in a grid and also to be able to select one, which is super helpful when you have custom components that people can make their own components, make their own widgets of things that have not been implemented yet by Streamlit. So what I need to do for that, I'll actually just copy and paste the code here. I'll just go through it with you. So it's called, the component is called clickable images, and what you need to give it is a list of the images. So here I'm giving the list of thumbnails, and if you want, you can also pass it a list of strings that correspond to these images. So when you hover over the image, you'll be able to see that text. So for us, it's going to be the video titles. So you can set the div styles to how big it's going to be, how you want to wrap the images once it reaches the maximum width, for example. But one other thing that I wanted to point out here is that you can set the overflow Y to be auto. And what that means is when you have many images that maybe you would have to show in a lot of rows, that will take a lot of space, you can set this to auto, and then you will have a scrollable div there. So I'll show you how that works in a second. But first I need to import, of course, this Streamlit component too. I'll import it here, and this is how you import it. But basically, you'll be able to see it in the GitHub repository for this custom component. I will leave the link for that also in the description below. But basically, Streamlit_clickable images from the clickable, and then we get the clickable images specifically from that. All right, so that's done. So let's see how that looks like here. All right, yeah, I forgot to remove this, so maybe let's do that. We don't really want to show the titles anymore. And maybe I can also show which image is selected. So I can have another markdown widget here. Yeah, and it'll show which image is selected. So let's rerun. And yeah, if I select an image, it runs again. But we don't want that, actually. There is a way to stop this, because right now when I click it, when I click something, well, we can see that it says thumbnail number 1 is clicked. So if I click it, it's going to say thumbnail number 2 is clicked. But what's happening is it is running the save audio function from scratch. So because, as you know, Streamlit applications, they run from beginning to end every time you change something, but we don't want that. So what we want is to save the results of the save audio function. So if we give it the same URL, it's not going to run again. It's going to immediately return to you the results that were calculated last time. So normally how we did that was with Streamlit Cache. But apparently recently Streamlit decided to divide the functionality of cache into a couple of smaller functions, or decorators, I guess these are called. So the new one is called a experimental_memo. So if I do this, it's not going to run every time I select a new thumbnail. So as you can see now, it's running save audio because the user default file is selected already. And yeah, okay, so if I select this one, it says thumbnail 0 is clicked, thumbnail 4 is clicked, thumbnail 2 is clicked. Great, so that functionality is working. Oops. So if I do it with another list of links, it will take a second to download all the audio files, but once it's done, it's going to show me all the thumbnails. And as I mentioned, now that we have too many thumbnails, we don't want it to keep going on and take up too much space in our app. So we have the scrollable functionality. So basically after 6 videos or something, this is activated and you can just scroll to look at more thumbnails. And if I select this, thumbnail 0 clicked, thumbnail 4 clicked, perfect, okay, it's working. So now with the actual part where we're going to analyze the contents of these videos. So once a video is selected, we are going to have the number of the video that was selected in the selected video variable. If nothing is selected, it's just going to return -1. So that's a good thing to know. So then we can just have a little condition here. If selected video is greater than -1, then we can start the analysis. The first thing that I want to get is the video URL, and I can get that from the URLs list. And that's going to be the selected videos URL from that list. And then I want to get the video title, and I also want to get the save location of where this audio is saved already. Video title I'm going to get from titles, and save location I'm going to get from locations. So same for these also. I want the title because, you know, it's nice to show people that what they selected is what they wanted. So I want to show the video title for that. And also there's a really nice, useful audio widget from Streamlit, and I'm going to use that to show people the audio that they selected. So let's see this quickly. So if I select the default again and select the first one, let's say, it's going to give me the title. And also you can see when we hover over them, we can see the titles. And you'll be able to listen to it here.
Apple Notes just keeps getting better. Here's a relatively new feature. I want to scan some text from a book directly into my...
All right, that's all good then. Now what we want to do is to start the analysis. So now is the part that we're going to work with AssemblyAI. So with AssemblyAI, what we need to do is first we need to upload the MP3 file to AssemblyAI. And then we're going to send another request to AssemblyAI to start analysis of the file. And lastly, after this analysis is started, we're going to need to ask AssemblyAI a bunch of times to see if the analysis is done and if we can receive the results of the analysis. So this is the 3 steps of things that we're going to do. I'm going to write a separate function for all of these basically. So the first one will be called upload to AssemblyAI. So let's write that one first. So all the supporting functions I'm just going to write at the beginning of my file. So I also wanted to for the results to be stored in cache, so I don't have to, this function doesn't need to run every single time. I'll paste the contents of this function to make it easier so it can go faster. Basically, when you're uploading a file to AssemblyAI, we use this little helper function. And in this helper function, what we do is to divide the file into chunks. We first read it, and then we divide it into chunks so that it's easier to upload it to AssemblyAI. To upload something to AssemblyAI, there are a bunch of things that we need. So first of all, we need the requests library. So let's import that. Once we have the request library, we are going to send a post request to an endpoint of AssemblyAI. So we need the upload endpoint for that. So let's get the upload endpoint. I'll just define it here. And lastly, what we need is the headers. The headers are going to include the authentication information for AssemblyAI. So what is the authentication information? Basically the API key. Well, you're thinking maybe I don't have an API key, but it's very simple to get an API key with AssemblyAI. All you need to do is to go to assemblyai.com, and then you can create an account by clicking Get Started I already have an account. It's a free account. You could just copy your API key by clicking here. And then you can paste your API key, use your API key here. So I'll show you how to define the headers too. Here, either you can paste your API key directly under the authorization, or if you're going to put this, if you're going to upload this application to Streamlit sharing, then you can, in the advanced options, you can specify an authentication key to be your key, to be your API key, and then you only need to call streamlit.secrets authentication key. But we're not going to deploy it today, so I'm just going to paste my API key as it is here. That's going to be my header. Once we have these things, all we have to do is to send a post request by reading the file in the save location to AssemblyAI. And what we're going to get is an upload response. So maybe let's see what this upload response looks like. I can actually write this on the application, so maybe it'll be easier to see. So I select the first one. Oh, I haven't called the function, of course. So let me call the function. And of course, we need the save location. We need to pass it the save location. So I need to call this from here after we select a video. Let's just call it for now. All right. Now we see that upload to AssemblyAI is running, and here is what we get, an upload URL. So this URL is basically where our audio has been uploaded to. And using this, we can start the analysis job. So for that, here, as you can see, in the function, we get the upload URL from the response, and we pass this back. We return this as the audio URL. So let's get this from our upload function. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is to start the analysis. So I'll call this a start analysis function. Let's go ahead and define it here too. So I'll just collapse this one. It doesn't take as much space. Start analysis. Again, I want the results of this to be stored in cache, so I don't need to run it over and over again. Let me get the contents of this one too. It's also quite short. For this one, as you can see, we need a transcript endpoint. So let me go ahead and paste the transcript endpoint here too, together with the upload endpoint. All right, let's go through it now. So for when you want to start a transcription job with AssemblyAI, well, I call it a transcription job, but we also call it an analysis job. But the reason I call it a transcription job is when you submit a file to AssemblyAI, audio or video, it automatically gets transcribed anyway. So either way, even if you do not specifically ask for it, your audio or video will be transcribed. And on top of that, you can specify what else you want to happen. AssemblyAI has a bunch of different models, and specifically NLP models or other audio intelligence models that can do a bunch of things, that can do a bunch of analysis on your audio or video files. The ones that we're going to use right now are called IAB categories. So this one returns to us the topics that were detected in this audio. There are nearly 700 topics and subtopics that can be detected with this model. And we can also use we're also going to use the content safety model. This model is going to return to us whether there were any sensitive topics that were discussed. So these sensitive topics could be drug usage, alcohol, violence, or health issues, anything that could be harmful to any group of people, or it could be a sensitive topic to a group of people. And we also get summarization. We're using the summarization model. The summarization model can return a bunch of different summaries to us. We're going to use the bullet summary. So it's going to give us a bulleted list of the summary of this audio file. You can use bullets verbose. With that one, you're going to get, again, a bulleted summary, but a much longer summary. You can use gist. With that one, you're only going to get a couple of words of summary. You can use headline. Headline will give you a one-sentence summary of this whole audio or video file. And lastly, you can use paragraph option. And with that option, you will get a paragraph as a summary of this audio or video file. So as I said, we're using the IAB category, so the topic detection, content safety, and the summary model, the summarization model from AssemblyAI. And what we're going to do is set these settings in a variable, let's call it data, and we're passing it with our request. And also we're again passing the headers to authenticate ourselves and we're passing all of this to the transcription endpoint. So together with all of these settings, we're also passing where our audio file lives, and we're passing all of this to the transcript endpoint using our headers to authenticate ourselves as a post request to AssemblyAI. And from this request, we also get a response, a transcript response. And let's see what the transcript response looks like too. Maybe I can start the analysis again. Well, we need to pass audio URL to this function. So let's go ahead and call it down here. I also need to print the transcript response so that we can see what it looks like. Yes, I just need to make sure I parse it into JSON. And yeah, here's what it looks like. So this is the response we get from starting the transcription job, or we can call it the analysis job. We get some details of what we set to be true or false. For example, the content safety model is turned on, the categories, IAB categories model is turned on, but for example, redacting personally identifiable information model is turned off, for example. So this is just kind of a summary of what we started. And also we get a ID for this job. So this is not going to run instantaneously, of course. We're going to have to wait for all of these models to complete computing, summarization, transcription, etc., all of the ones that we are working on. And we are going to use this ID to see if this transcription job is complete or not. So we're going to send GET requests to AssemblyAI. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Here we get the ID from this response. We call it the transcript ID, or we can also call it job ID. And by adding this ID to the transcript endpoint that we've defined up here, we get a polling endpoint. And this polling endpoint is going to be the place that we're going to ask AssemblyAI to see if this job has been completed or not. So that brings me to my last step. Well, here we're going to read the polling endpoint. And once we get the polling endpoint, we're going to want to receive the results. So I can call this get summarization results, but basically, let's call it analysis results then, a bit more comprehensive. And to that, we're going to need to pass the polling endpoint, but let's go ahead and define this one. We're passing it to polling endpoint. We know that much. And again, I want it to be cached. Let me get the contents of this one too quickly. So this one is very simple, actually. All we have to do is to keep asking AssemblyAI if the job is completed or not. So for that, I'm going to start a infinite loop, or seemingly infinite loop. And I'm going to have a status variable that can break this loop, basically. The status is first going to be submitted, because that's the first status that you get from AssemblyAI. I'm going to send a GET request to the polling endpoint that we get using the previous function. And again, the headers to authenticate ourselves. And as a response, we're going to get something. So maybe let's print what this response looks like before anything else, so we can understand it a little bit better. Maybe I will not say while true, just kind of run these ones. All right. I also need to call this function, of course. Are we doing it already? Not properly, at least. All right, let's run it and see. I also want to remove the prints from the other ones so it doesn't confuse us. All right, so this is the response that we get. We again get the same ID for the job, and we again get the same information, basically, of what we turned off, what we turned on. So this is kind of like a summary of or a review of the job that you started. One difference is this time we get status, and status tells us if this job is complete or not. When we first submit it, it is submitted, and then it can be queued, it can be processing when it's not done, and there are two outcomes. It will either be completed or it will error out. So we want to cover all of these possibilities here. So let's get back. yeah, let's get back to our while loop again. So if it's submitted or still processing, that means that it's not done. So we can wait 10 seconds before asking again, because if we don't wait, we're just going to keep asking. It's not going to be useful. So let's import sleep so that we can make this app sleep for a little bit. If the status is completed, on the other hand, then it means that the job of this function is done, so we can just return the polling response. Or if it errors out or something else happens that we do not expect, we can just return false. Now we will see how we deal with it. So let me collapse these functions so we can start writing the part where we display the results of this analysis. So I'll get the polling response from here. That's what we're going to get. And yeah, but that we're nearly done. So the last couple of things that we've been doing have been for the background. So right now, if we try to do the analysis, nothing much really happens, or at least it looks like nothing is happening. So now that we have the results for the analysis, what we want to do is to display these results of the analysis. Polling response is a bit confusing, so I'll just call this results. And now we want to get the summary and the topics and the sensitive topics from these results, of course. So we want to know what we should extract for. So if we just quickly go and take a look at AssemblyAI's documentation, we'll see for summary, see that with ID and everything. Well, we just need to read the summary from it. So I can say the summary is results.json, and in there I'm going to look for the summary. For topics, let's see, topic detection. Okay, so it's a little bit more complicated, this one, because we get for each piece of text which topics are found in this, or which topics were discussed in this given audio bit. But maybe we don't want to see it for every single part of this audio file, but we want to see generally what was discussed, all of the things that were discussed in this audio. So then I can also just take a look at the summary, but in this time I'm looking at IAB category results and then summary. So we'll say results.json, and then IAB category results, and then the summary of these results. And lastly, sensitive topics, let's call it. For that again, results.json. Let's see. Content moderation. With that one, it's called content safety labels. Again, if there is anything that was found, it's going to give us the results for everything. So let's say if it's health issues, it's going to give us the audio bit that was where the health issues were mentioned, so the text of it, and the confidence and the severity of it. But maybe, again, we don't really want all of that. We just kind of want a summary of what topics, sensitive topics were discussed. So it's going to be content safety labels and then summary. Now let's display these. For the summary one, it's going to be quite simple. So I'm just going to give it a little header. Then I can call this summary of this video. And then simply I can say it's the summary. There is no interesting way that I need to show this. And then let's show the sensitive topics, but I'll just copy and paste my code here to make it faster. So basically, again, I give it a header for the sensitive content, and I check that if it's empty or not, because sometimes maybe there is no sensitive topics that were discussed. So then what we can show the user is a subheader of all clear. There is nothing that was sensitive that was discussed in this video. But if there is something that was discussed that we might deem as sensitive, we can just show another subheader saying that mention of these following sensitive topics were detected. And then I will write this sensitive topic summaries into a data frame to make it easier to deal with, also to make it easier to show. Update the columns of it to show the topic and the confidence, because maybe it's a sensitive topics, but if the confidence is very low, maybe it's not going to affect your analysis of this video. And basically just show it at the end. So let me show where we are so far. If I rerun this, We get the summary of this video, and yeah, for this one, apparently there is no sensitive content detected. Maybe we can use instead the White House videos. I'm sure there will be some sensitive topics that were discussed in there. And we'll see that the summary is here, and also there was something sensitive that was discussed, and it says it's the sensitive social issues, and the confidence is 0.78. So that's good to know, but it's also nice to know that it is being shown correctly. And the last thing that I want to show is a list of topics, and it's going to be quite similar to the sensitive content. We're going to show it in a data frame, but there's going to be a little bit of a twist there. So I'll show you what the results look like right now for the topic detection. So I'll just call it, these are the topics discussed. Maybe I can already turn them into a data frame. So get topics, items in there. I call it topics data frame. And I'll show you what that looks like with ST data frame. All right, so this is what it's going to look like, because we do not only get topics, but also subtopics and subtopics as far as we can go, together with the confidence. So this is a perfectly okay way of showing the topics too. Of course, you can say, you can have people read, okay, news and politics, war and conflicts, right? That's an okay way to show this. But I kind of want to separate them using these little, I don't even know what these symbols are called, for each subtopic or topic to have its own column. So for that, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'll just quickly paste my code here that we already worked on. First, I'm changing the names of the columns. So I'm calling this topic and I'm calling this confidence. And then I am separating the topics into subtopics as far as it goes using the symbol. And once they're split, I'm basically separating them to be on different columns. So once that's done, all we can do is actually just show it again with ST data frame. Well, I'll just use this actually. Let's see. And perfect, yeah. So this is basically the topics that are discussed. This is kind of like the first level. It's either travel or business and finance, news and politics, kind of like a higher level topic. And then it goes into more details. So if it's business and finance, specifically business, and then specifically executive leadership and management. Or here we have even more nuanced topics, education and then college education, postgraduate education, and professional school. And we also get the confidences here in case the user wants to take a look at them. But with that, we can actually wrap this up. This is the application that we built. We are giving information to the user of how they can use this app. We have an option to upload a default file or not. We have an option to upload our own file. We show the thumbnails to the user, and then once a thumbnail is selected, we show the analysis of this video to the user through a summary, whether there were any sensitive topics that were discussed, and all the topics that were discussed in this video. And that's all. Thank you for building with me today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you build this project or something similar, don't forget to let us know either through comments here or maybe on Twitter. You can tag us. You'll find the handles or all our social handles in the description below. Don't forget again that there is a tutorial version, a written tutorial version of the same video on the Streamlit blogs. I will again leave the link somewhere here so you can go take a look at that. Thanks again for building with me today. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.